You're listening to the Infinite Banking Mastery Podcast. Did you know that you could build a tax-free pool of wealth that's liquid and accessible all your life while building your retirement nest egg? Gain full control of your financial future and stop relying on the government and banks. The wealthy have already discovered this wealth-building secret. Now it's your turn to get financially secure without following the conventional wisdom that keeps you in debt to banks. Now here's your host, Valerie LaRocque.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Infinite Banking Mastery Podcast. Thank you for being here. I was listening to a business owner and friend of mine the other day give a presentation at a meeting for an association I'm a part of. I actually happen to be the president of this association right now. But this gentleman, he has a home care company. For those of you who live in Washington, the speaker was actually Joe Hillier, who owns Home Watch Caregivers in Tacoma, Washington, with his wife, Marilyn. They employ caregivers that go out to people's homes who need help, and their services include things like personal care to help those who have a hard time with the activities of daily living, such as bathing, transferring, dressing, getting dressed, transferring, eating. I know I've covered these before. Their caregivers can also help with shopping or running other errands, light housekeeping, meal prepping, and they also can provide 24-hour care, nursing care, things like this. Well, he had some really interesting information to share, so I thought I would share some of that with you. I've never interviewed anyone on this podcast yet, but I'm thinking that if I do, or when I'm ready to start interviewing people, he would be a good one to interview at some point. His business has nothing to do with the infinite banking concept. Although the infinite banking concept is infinite, so you could certainly use your policy for this purpose. And remember that whole life insurance policies are likely to come with a rider that would allow you to accelerate or access a portion of the death benefit for a long-term care need. I can't say all companies or all whole life contracts come with this rider, but most of them should come with a rider. Also, some states are the ones that don't allow these types of features like this chronic or long-term care type of rider on these whole life contracts. As an example, California stands out as one of those states that takes a really long time to improve updated and sometimes really cool features that insurance companies add to their products. Every so often, an insurance company will update their products and make changes to them. For new customers, they don't make changes to your existing contract that will remain guaranteed as you purchased it. They make these changes sometimes for the better and sometimes not, although it seems that the changes are usually for the better from what I have noticed. But not to worry again, not whatever your contract comes with, it is guaranteed for your lifetime. Even if they make changes to their products, it will not affect your contract. For example, right now, there is a whole life contract that comes with a guaranteed 4% loan rate. You have the option of choosing a variable rate, but if you have one of these contracts, you will be able to access a loan against your whole life policy at 4% guaranteed for the rest of your life. Companies make changes based on what's going on in the market. So the loan rate got lowered on new contracts a few years ago, following the very low interest rate environment that we were in. Now we've been in a higher interest rate environment, but they haven't made changes to increase the loan rate. Not yet anyway. Life insurance companies are very slow to make updates and changes like that. So for those of you feeling like you're ready to get started with the infinite banking process and acquiring a whole life policy for yourself, now is a good time because you can still lock in at a loan rate at 4%. Anyway, I should get back to my original topic. Joe, the speaker at my meeting, had a couple of great questions that he asked right at the beginning. Very simple questions, but great ones. The first one was, what is your plan for caring for yourself as you age? And what if you need help? I know a lot of people don't really like to think about those things, or how are they going to care for themselves? What happens when I pass away? We don't like to think about those sad topics, but it is very important for you to think about that for yourself. Do you have a plan? Do you have insurance coverage? Do you need insurance coverage? Are you planning to live with one of your children? Do your children know that? Just think about where you may end up if you end up needing help or care in your older years. The second question was, have you organized things like medical, legal, financial, housing, and care management or caregiving needs? So, yeah, it's important to look over your estate plan or make sure you have one, a will, some health directives, maybe a power of attorney. Just make sure you look into all that for when you get to your older years, that you have something in place, or maybe something happens to you when you're younger, unexpected, that causes you to lean on what you wrote up in your estate plan or your health directives. And so it's just important to have make sure all of that stuff is in order. There are 10,000 baby boomers that are retiring every day, and he added that 7 out of 10 of those will require long term care. Another amazing statistic that he mentioned is that people 85 and older grew from 3.3 million in 1990 to 6.7 million in 2020. Wow. And he added that this number will double between 2020 and 2030. Those that are over age 85 are the people who consume the greatest amount of healthcare. Another statistic is that one third of the US population will be affected by dementia or Alzheimer's, and that for every one person who lives in a nursing home, there are three more living at home that are in poor health. Businesses in the US lose billions of dollars every year due to workers being absent or having higher turnover staff and overall loss of productivity due to their employees needing to care for their aging loved ones. In fact, the average woman in the United States spends more time caring for her aging parents than she did taking care of and raising her children. That is just crazy. Joe Hillier mentioned that the cost of home care is significantly lower than other options when compared to hospital visits, emergency room procedures, ambulance transportation, or nursing home admissions. Although by no means is home care inexpensive. He's just comparing it to being alone at home and therefore needing to be admitted to the hospital regularly after having been transferred by ambulance and then having to go to a nursing home to recover. The question is, how do you know when it's time to get help? Certainly, when a doctor diagnoses you as needing help, or if diagnosed with some form of dementia, if you are unable to perform 2 out of the 6 activities of daily living, then that's what would trigger a long term care policy because you can cover this risk and get insurance, like I mentioned. Being unable to perform 2 out of the 6 ADLs is also what triggers the type of rider on a life insurance policy that would allow you access to funds for this reason. Now, it's being unable to perform 2 out of the 6 activities of daily living that trigger any insurance benefits, but there are also IADLs, instrumental activities of daily living, that might require you to start needing help. Things like using the phone, shopping, preparing food, housekeeping, doing laundry, handling your own medications, or handling your finances. Those with dementia often have trouble with these things before they do their ADLs, the activities of daily living. So that might be a sign. When you or a loved one starts to realize that they will need some sort of care, there is really only 2 options: home care and assisted living. There are also skilled nursing facilities or nursing homes, but that's usually a last resort. Home care is something that usually you have to pay for. You can also get long term care insurance to help cover this cost. Medicaid can also cover the cost if you qualify. Although qualifying for Medicaid means you have had to spend down just about all of your assets. People often think that this type of need will be covered by Medicare. However, this is not really something that Medicare covers, more Medicaid will cover it. If you have an injury and need care for a short time, Medicare will cover that, but not for a long term need. From what I had read recently, they will cover you for up to about 100 days, but they only cover the full cost for about 20 days. So you're going to have to pay like a coinsurance cost after those first 20 days. Of course, I think that the best way to prepare for this risk is to have some insurance coverage for it. You may not be able to have enough coverage to cover the full cost of care, but it certainly would help. There are different types of policies available. I know I've mentioned this before, thought I'd go over it again. The first type of long term care insurance is a policy similar to having like car insurance or health insurance. It's similar because if you don't end up using the benefits, you're not going to get anything from it. If you pass away before using it, there's no life insurance benefit. There's no cash that's going to pass from you or your policy to anybody else. This is or tends to be the least expensive way to cover this risk. Another option would be a long term care life insurance hybrid policy. This is a policy that is meant to be used for long term care during your lifetime. If needed, you would be spending down the death benefit. And if it doesn't get used, or you use partially, you use some of the benefits, but not all of the benefits, or you don't spend down the full benefit, then a death benefit will be paid, or the remainder of the death benefit will be paid. With this type of policy, a rider can be added, at least with one company that I work with, and where you can ensure the benefits will continue to pay. Usually, you are purchasing the benefits for a specific period of time. However, with the long term care life hybrid policy, there can be an option to add a rider. Again, I can't say this is the case for all companies that might have a policy like this, but that rider would allow your long term care benefits to continue to pay as long as you live and could also pay through both you and your spouse's life. A third option is the rider that can come with your whole life policy that I talk about all the time, the chronic rider. And different companies may call it different names, but this rider would allow you to access your death benefit or allow you to accelerate a portion of your death benefit if you trigger the rider by being unable to perform 2 out of the 6 activities of daily living, or if you were to receive a diagnosis of dementia. That alone would trigger the benefit as well. There's also an annuity option out there that's available to protect for long term care. The last time I connected with the company that I work with that offers this annuity long term care option, mentioned that this tends to be more of a go to option for those that don't qualify for the life hybrid option. Now, the cost for home care services or assisted living will depend on how much care you need. The more help you need, the more levels of care, the higher the cost. The most expensive type of care from the 3 options that I listed earlier would usually be skilled nursing facility. And usually a person in skilled nursing is there because they need a lot of care. And that's what really causes the price to go up for this type of thing, is how much care you need. One other thing is that even though a nurse might not be coming to see you, care is supervised by a nurse. At least this is the case with home watch caregivers and also the assisted living community. A couple of other interesting facts for those of you who live in my home state of Washington is that apparently Washington is the second highest in the US for the cost of care for seniors. Yikes. We also have the highest health insurance costs per person. Yay for Washington. Another thing that is likely available in your area is adult daycare. Sometimes, if the family is handling the majority of the care or all of the care, they need a little break from time to time. You can look into the cost of taking your loved one to adult daycare. Here in Washington, it looks like the daily cost is somewhere around $325 per day as of right now. Well, if you're listening to this podcast and you feel you should look into your long-term care options or the options for a loved one or a parent and would like to partner with me as your advisor, feel free to reach out. You can reach me at Valerie@alphaomegawealth.com, and I would love to meet you. Or if you're feeling ready to begin a whole life policy for the process of the infinite banking concept, or simply to protect your family, I'm here to help and would love to connect. As always, thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great week.